I think I want to put a knowledge nugget at this point that I think anybody in the military community who's listening, veteran community, military spouse, and military affiliate, or whatever the case is, Stephen and Bobby, you guys hit on two things that I think is super important for us to reverse engineer, right? And this is where I'm going with this knowledge nugget piece, is that when somebody says, "Hey, Asif," and I think Bobby will agree with me, he kind of goes in the same direction. Lucky you too, Steve. Where do we start, right? Where do we start with AI? At the very beginning of the conversation, we talked about the fact that if you have a passion for something, if your domain expertise is that, you start from there. You do not start with where you're not. Where you're not is in data. Where you're not is in AI. Where you're not in is in machine learning, right? You're not in any of these technical things. If you think you are non-techie, own it and just start in non-techie with your domain expertise. Because what's going to shift is not AI. The shift is going to happen inside of your domain expertise. So you have a starting point, which is your domain expertise. But if you have to do one thing that I've been telling people, it's like you just don't have time like I do. Well, I did, not anymore. I have kids. I don't have time to study all day long. 10 years ago, I went through just all sorts of getting smacked around, mistakes, fallouts, right? Just disappointment. I'm talking about not knowing what I'm talking about most of the time, right? It just happened because I didn't know enough. I was starting off. I was in the military for a long time, didn't do anything technical really, other than physical security technology, right? So I come out, I'm just like, yeah, I can do ethical hacking. That's fine, right? Because it's pretty much the same thing I did in the military. I stopped people from penetrating into the base. I can learn how to, stop people from penetrating into the system. So ethical hacking, pen testing, all this stuff, really thought I knew what I was doing. I didn't know. I wasn't the domain expert of that field. It just sounded similar, right? So again, where do you start? You start with domain expertise. Whatever your domain expertise is, bring technology into it, right? And then think of these 3 steps, which I think I used to say 2, but I'm going to add the 3rd piece today because Stephen hit the digital twin into the ballpark, right? Because I always said, you're going to have to jump in advanced. Don't jump in thinking like I'm going to stubborn little by little. No. I'm going to dare you to do something that you probably will appreciate me because you're going to save yourself 10 years into your journey, right? One is digital twin. That is something that every domain expertise will have to have going forward. They just don't know it yet. They don't call it that yet. And they sometimes call it dashboard. They call it reference model, virtual prototyping, AR, VR, MXR, whatever you want to call it. You're going to have digital twin in your domain expertise. That one piece I didn't really tell people about because I thought it was too advanced. But I think these days it's getting so much faster and closer because of NVIDIA's digital twin of the whole planet. NVIDIA's giving away open source digital twin capabilities. I think it's just going to happen very rapidly. So I'm glad, Stephen, you brought that up. Thank you so much for that. But the other 2 pieces that I would say start advanced and reverse engineer into something chewable, something that you can bite on, right? Yes. It's kind of like recognizing the elephant, right? See the elephant, eat the elephant, right? But the other 2 pieces is ethical hacking and digital forensics. Digital forensics will drive you into such an advanced mode that you will know this is not for you, but you're going to find something that you're going to start reverse engineering from. And as somebody who's thinking about a career into AI, I don't think you want a career into AI. You just want to hold on to your domain expertise and build your career with AI for your domain expertise.
Right.
But unless you're jumping in, that's fine. That's fine. I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just saying don't feel intimidated by AI because curiosity brings you closer where fear takes you further away, right? So if you want to get curious, look into these 3 topics: digital twin, digital forensics, and ethical hacking. Because when you're hacking, you will know the value of data. If you're thinking about hacking, you will know the value of data because the hackers, why would a hacker spend 400 hours, 4,000 hours trying to hack into your system? What's so valuable about your data? You don't see it, but if you know one thing about ethical hackers, they're looking for aggregation of data. And once you see the picture where your data fits into the aggregation, you get a picture about your data that you're like, I got to protect this like it's my kid. because that's my data portfolio that's going to turn into $1 billion enterprise in coming decades, right? Ethical hackers are looking for your data so they can aggregate with other data, one piece, but you can reverse engineer something chewable, something that you can personalize for your domain expertise. The other piece of it is the digital forensics. Now, I was not particularly a fan of digital forensics because I'm trying to prevent attack, not trying to figure out what would happen with the attack. But this is my favorite because I got so wrapped up in digital forensics that I was just like, forget Linux, forget ethical hacking. I'm just going to digital forensics. So based on digital forensics, you understand what does it take to run not an AI system, just a plain boring IT system that just says, here's an email. Do you want to read it? Right? Plain boring AI system. An IT system. And you can look from digital forensics perspective and say, piece by piece, each zeros and ones, how did it get to that email? Mm-hmm. Digital forensics is such an intricate process of understanding that I guarantee you're going to find something in digital forensics that's going to catch your attention. And you're going to say, my domain expertise doesn't have that. I'm going to take this piece and add that to my domain expertise. Now, this is why I'm getting very excited about talking about this thing, because I have found so many things that got me so excited about digital forensics, because I don't know anything about digital forensics, but I know enough to say, I love semiconductor chips, right? Part of the digital forensics was to look through the hardware and find layers of burn in hardwares and say, what's happening here? Why did this piece get burned? What happened? You're trying to understand what happened to the electronic device. I loved it. Because you realize what does it mean to put electricity through a hardware and what are the volts doing inside the hardware? I didn't know anything about that until I did digital forensics, right? So digital forensics, your ethical hacking, these are advanced, but I think if you start with advanced, you save a lot of time as you reverse engineer into something biteable, chewable, something that you can say, this slim piece of information here, I want to take this and I want to own this one. Right? I'm not a techie, but if I have to learn anything technological, I want to learn something here, right? And then bring that back to my domain expertise. And digital twin, my God, Stephen, we can talk hours and days about digital twin because it's as applicable as AI is, right? It's as wide as the spectrum of data, but I will let you risk it, and maybe you can talk about something like that. But I think we're capturing a picture here where we are. But what we need to talk about is the fact that the careers, the way we do our day-to-day operation, like you said, your kids are using ChatGPT. What's going to happen to the workspace? Are we working remotely? Are we working remotely as in I sit on the dock and I drive that ship that is thousands of miles away? I'm in San Diego flying a drone that's in Australia. Mm. But drone that's in the water, not in the air. Mm-hmm. I'm flying a drone that's in the water, but it's carrying cargoes of 80,000 billion tons. You know what I mean? So let's talk about that a little bit more, because the career side of things is very interesting. What's your thought on that, Stephen?